Netflix, Disney+, Amazon Prime, and more. Seems like every company with any media properties is making its own streaming platform. One of these big media companies that exists in this industry space is AT&T. However, their approach to acquiring, producing, and presenting content for their platforms differs from the other platforms in some interesting ways. This video will examine those differences through study of AT&T's business practices, their online properties, and their use of parasocial relationships to make their online and niche content profitable. Before going into their modern business, a look at AT&T's history can provide insight into the institutional knowledge the company has that helps it compete in this current media landscape. The current entity known as AT&T began its life as a baby bell named SBC Communications. Baby Bells were the 7 companies that the government split from the old AT&T when it became a monopolistic behemoth in the telecommunications industry. However, deregulation of the telecom industry and smart business moves led to SBC becoming a dominant force in the telecom industry again. It finally became the modern AT&T when it bought the name and the company that had the name for $16 billion. Over the years since the split that birthed it, this new AT&T bought up all the other Baby Bells, became a major firm in the cell phone sector, and expanded its media empire, not being content with just being a vector of distribution but instead expanding into media production. AT&T did not organically create and grow their media empire. They did what they've been doing since they were Baby Bell, acquiring the means of media distribution and production from other firms. Through acquisitions and mergers, AT&T controls 2 major distribution platforms and 1 major production firm, Hoover's AT&T. Their distribution platforms are the 2 television providers they operate, AT&T Uverse and DirecTV. Having both gives AT&T ownership of a sizable share of the TV provider sector. Coupled with their cell phone division, this gives AT&T many options for distribution and places to generate revenue from. The major production firm that AT&T acquired was Time Warner. With this acquisition, AT&T became one of the top 6 major production firms in the U.S., competing with the likes of Disney. AT&T acquired assets that allowed it to become a major player in television, film, and video games. However, AT&T did not stop at just entering those sectors. This acquisition, coupled with an earlier investment in acquisition, allowed AT&T to become a major player in internet content production too. Ever since YouTube and Netflix became industry leaders in internet content production and distribution, firms in the media industries have been trying their hardest to become the next one to do it or even surpass and take over YouTube's and Netflix's market share. Verizon crashed and burned with failed attempts at it, like their acquisition of Yahoo and their deployment of Go90. Disney has been leveraging all their media properties, even buying 21st Century Fox to add their content to compete, dumping all their content from competing services for their own service, Disney+. AT&T has gone a different route than the others. Back in 2013, AT&T and the Chernin Group failed to acquire Hulu, Spangler, 2014. Instead of stopping there, the 2 firms decided to create their own over-the-top video venture. This led to the creation of Otter Media. At the time, Chernin Group had a majority stake in Crunchyroll, an anime streaming platform, which it contributed to this new venture. Otter Media would go on to create, acquire, and restructure assets till it had 2 main companies it owned, Fullscreen and Elation Media, Hoover's, Otter Media. This information was hard to find because the databases like Hoover's reported it inaccurately or were out of date. As an asset, Fullscreen had 2 main functions: as a production firm through Rooster Teeth and as a YouTube multi-channel network called Fullscreen. Otter Media would split these functions into 2 separate subsidiaries later to allow both greater flexibility in their respective roles. Elation Media was where Crunchyroll and Crunchyroll Games resided. Later, in 2016, Elation Media developed VRV, a subscription VOD service, to compete with Netflix and Hulu by providing access to niche internet and traditional content all in one place, Baumgardner. All of this developed and grew while AT&T could share the risk with the Chernin Group. That all changed in 2018. In 2018, for a reported $1 billion, the Chernin Group sold its share of Otter Media to AT&T, Spangler, 2018. AT&T, after this buyout and acquiring Time Warner, merged the Otter Media assets into its Warner Media unit. Specifically, the Otter Media assets were incorporated into a new section of Warner Media's film, television, and games operations, a new global kids and young adult section that houses Cartoon Network, Boomerang, Adult Swim, and others, Warner Media. This move was an attempt, in their words, to harness Otter's expertise in feeding the passion of online audiences to augment our portfolio of digital assets and help us further engage, connect, and entertain consumers around the globe. Spangler, 2018. In more normal terms, this move allows them to synergistically mix the benefits of their traditional media assets with the benefits of their new media assets to create a better, more profitable product on both sides. For the new media assets, it allows them access to funds and support that allow to do bigger and better things, such as Crunchyroll getting funding to create animation studios to produce their own animated content, Rutgers. For the traditional media assets, the move allows access to a young, diverse consumer base, missed usually by traditional media, that they can sell and advertise to. However, much like with all capitalist actions, this consolidation and acquisition has had negative impacts. Ignoring the larger, macroeconomic impacts of this acquisition because it is too soon to see the effects of it, the acquisition has influenced the new media landscape. Machinima was one of the biggest, profitable YouTube channels in early years of YouTube after the Google acquisition, Weiss. They often competed directly with firms like Rooster Teeth for views and advertiser money. They got so big that they eventually created their own multi-channel network. With that success, attention from traditional media firms was inevitable. In 2016, Machinima was acquired by Warner Brothers. After the Time Warner acquisition, AT&T absorbed all the assets of Machinima into Otter Media. The YouTube channel was stripped of all its content, with many of the valuable assets put behind paywalls on subscription services like Rooster Teeth and VRV. The multi-channel network was absorbed into full-screen, with many of the difficult or advertiser-unfriendly channels kicked off the network after being absorbed. A similar process that has been seen in traditional economic sectors is now being reproduced in the new media economic sector. It does not matter if it's traditional media or new media because the forces of capitalism stay the same. This process will become more common in the new media sector as it becomes more consolidated and as big firms become hungrier and hungrier for content to profit off of. In this current year of 2019, some content assets from their myriad of online content producers will move from their online homes and onto Warner Media's HBO Max. The clearest example of this is Rooster Teeth's animated show Gen Luck. The first season ran exclusively on Rooster Teeth's website behind their subscription paywall. After the first season, there wasn't much information on when the second season would arrive. That was until it was announced the second season would premiere live on HBO Max. This shows one of the endgames of their online content strategy, that being these online producers making popular content that can be absorbed into HBO Max and drive subscriptions for the platform. But why are these online content producers a driver of subscriptions? Parasocial relationships are the core relationships that drive most online content and is what is being exploited by AT&T in their online content strategy. The internet celebrity, in an attempt to create or manufacture authenticity, creates a parasocial relationship with audience. A parasocial relationship is a one-sided relationship where one party presents the appearance of vulnerability and openness to cultivate a feeling of realness and to make them feel like a friend to the viewer. The audience will know more about the performer or company more than those entities know about the audience. Can negatively affect both celebrity and audience if not carefully managed. Can lead to overwork, hero worship, obsession, etc. Fan conventions, use of merch, and the reuse and marketing of certain personalities in content are how Rooster Teeth and other Warner Media online content producers utilize and monetize those relationships. This includes conventions like RTX and Crunchyroll Expo. AT&T exploits these existing parasocial relationships to drive fans of those online producers to HBO Max. AT&T is a humongous firm with business dealings over multiple sectors. People always talk about how Disney is taking over the media landscape, but AT&T is doing the same thing. Randall Stephenson, the chairman, president, and CEO of AT&T, and all the other CEOs like John Donovan, Lori Lee, and others are all competing with likes of Bob Iger and Disney to be the dominant economic and cultural media entity, Hoover, AT&T. With their over 250,000 employees and 6,195 subsidiaries, AT&T exists as a definite contender in that fight. Their new media and traditional media assets coupled with their distribution platforms gives them unique advantages other rivals like Verizon and Disney do not possess. AT&T may one day become another bigger monopoly just like the one that birthed them, except now over more media sectors instead of just telecommunications. One day, people may be watching a Rooster Teeth-produced Batman film streamed over AT&T internet to their AT&T branded iPhone. Yay, capitalism.